and welcome to the Trauma Treatment Collective vlog. Today we're going to be talking about inner child work and trauma treatment. I thought this was a great topic to talk about because it's something that I'm hearing more and more about as I'm in different therapist communities. And it's actually something that I have been using for a while now. I learned about it when I was working with attachment challenges in adoptive children, in adoptive families. And so it was something that I kind of learned about at that time, but I've been able to take it now that I solely work with adults. I've been able to take it into the work that I do with adults, and I found it to be really helpful in helping clients to heal from trauma. So when you think about inner child work, you're thinking about working with the parts of a client that are younger than their most present self. So I use the term your most grown-up self with a client, and so that's kind of them in their present day self. And then we're working with any parts that seem to be showing up or seeming to be needing support that are younger than their present day self. So that could be some as close as a year ago or as far back as when they were little itty bitty babies. And so I help clients to identify, and I'm going to talk a little bit about how I do that, but I help clients to identify those parts of themselves. Sometimes clients can be very specific and they can say, oh, this is my 2-year-old part, or this is my 12-year-old part, or this is my 16-year-old part. And other times clients are a little more fuzzy and they can say, oh, it just feels like it's around about elementary school, or it feels like it's pre-verbal, like I was a little infant kind of thing. Whatever they can identify, whatever they can come to connect with is a good thing when you're doing inner child work. And so it doesn't have to be specific. It doesn't have to have as much detail. It just has to resonate with the client, and it has to mean something to the client. And then you can work with it from there. So being able to work with those parts, meet the needs of those parts, support those parts. Another term that you might hear associated with inner child work is reparenting. So really kind of being able to nurture and support those parts in a way that a parent would, helping your client to learn to do that for themselves. So I kind of did a little bit of research on the history of inner child work, and as far as I could go back, it's Carl Jung, and he was the person who kind of where the term divine child archetype originated. Was with Carl Jung. And so that was where that term originated from. And then, as we've moved forward, the most present day thing that really works with parts is the internal family systems model. And so if you are interested in getting training in parts and those kinds of things and working with different parts, internal family systems is a great modality to look at and to consider as you are thinking about working with those parts. So when you think about populations, I actually wrote a little bit of a list here so that I wouldn't miss any. But the one that I use it with the most is childhood abuse. So if I have an adult who's coming in who has had some type of childhood abuse, then I am definitely going to probably do some inner child work. And so any kind of neglect, physical abuse, sexual abuse, emotional abuse, any of those kinds of types of things that have happened to an adult client in their childhood and they're wanting to work on it now that they are adults, then they would be really good to incorporate inner child work. Also, anger management is another good one. So really kind of helping clients connect with maybe parts of themselves that didn't get to express their anger, or the anger felt repressed at that age, and then helping them to connect with those parts. Low self-esteem is another good one. Inner critic is another good one. A lot of times when a client has a strong inner critic, I may work with inner child work to help them to kind of connect with where that inner critic is coming from and to be able to heal that part of them so that they can be less critical of themselves. Self-sabotaging, a lot of times we see clients who struggle to get healthy because they will self-sabotage. So helping them to connect with that part of them that's struggling to get healthy or who's afraid to be healthy can sometimes be really helpful in the work. And then codependency is another one, another presenting issue that a client might come in with that I may use inner child work. So when you're thinking about inner child work, the way that I introduce it and the way that I learned to introduce it when I was working with adoptive families was through using nesting dolls. And I'm going to show you a picture of nesting dolls here. But my nesting dolls are basically dolls that sit inside of each other. And so it's a really great visual to kind of show families or show clients the idea that there are parts of us that live inside of our hearts. And I just talk about it like that. There are parts of you that live inside of your heart. Even though you are in your present most grown-up self, there are parts of you that live inside of your heart. And let's identify those different parts. And so we may use all of the nesting dolls, or we may use only a couple of the nesting dolls. The other thing that I like to also use a lot is sometimes the nesting cups that you use with preschoolers to teach them the kind of things, object permanency, things kind of go inside of each other. So anything that sits inside of another thing would be a really great visual for a client to be able to see this idea of parts of us living inside of ourselves. I use the largest nesting doll as their most present self, and then I let them identify different parts, like if they want to use a smaller part, the smaller nesting doll. If they want to use a medium-sized nesting doll, they have that option to be able to use that. So I introduced the concept using nesting dolls, and it's a really great visual for clients to really kind of get the concept and to understand it. Sometimes I'll use it just to introduce it, and sometimes those nesting dolls are out the whole time that we're working and doing inner child work, and the client likes to maybe hold that particular nesting doll that represents the inner child that they're working with, and sometimes clients are like, oh, okay, I don't need that anymore. They have more of a visual. The two ways that I work with clients is through visualization. So one of the ways that I will help clients to really connect with that inner child is to be able to visualize what that child looks like, what that child enjoyed, what that child is like now. Like, are they curious? Are they playful? Are they shy? Are they scared? Are they afraid? Really connecting with that child. And I'll have them then, as they get that into their mind's eye, I'll have them visualize themselves in their most grown-up self coming into that scene and being with that child and really connecting with that child. And so that's kind of the introduction. And then at the end of the session, I'll say we can either place that child with someone who's very safe, and we can kind of imagine them going to live with them, or that child can come to live with you and they can live with you today, and you can begin to nurture that child in your own home and start to really get to know that child. A lot of times my clients will say, that kid's coming home with me. I'm not leaving them with anyone else. I feel safest with that child coming home with me. And so a lot of times this is the very beginnings of that client starting to be more present and more cognizant of how that inner child is showing up in their day-to-day life. And so they will have conversations with that inner child. It may be out loud verbally. I tell clients it's okay to talk, as you are going through your house and doing your day-to-day things, to talk to that inner child. Or it may be that they are just having a more of a mental conversation with that inner child and checking in as things are coming up. The client may be thinking about, okay, is this me or is this my inner child? Like, what does my inner child need right now? So that's one way, is through a lot of strong visualization and really connecting from more of a somatic place with that inner child. The other thing I may have clients do is journal. And so what I will have them do is I'll have them pick a color for their most grown-up self and then a color for that inner child. And so they will write in their most grown-up voice in one color, and then they will answer and have a conversation and dialogue back and forth with the other color as their inner child. And so this really helps clients to be able to differentiate between which one is my most grown-up self and which one is my inner child. So that's another option too, to have clients to kind of be able to work with this and get the feel of what it's like to be connected to both parts of themselves, the inner child part as well as their most grown-up self part. So those are two ways that I work with it. I wanted to address just one barrier that sometimes comes up quite frequently for my clients, is the idea of not wanting to blame their parents. And so a lot of times I address this by saying, we're not here to blame your parents. Just like I do with attachment challenges as well. A lot of times that can kind of lead to clients kind of, being a little more hesitant to accept the idea that maybe something happened in their childhood because they don't want to blame their parent. And I say, we're not blaming your parent. We're just recognizing that your parent is human. And so there may be some really great things about your parent, and there's some really great things that they did, but there are also some things that they may have missed, or they may have not been able to meet that need. And so we're holding both of those. We don't have to pick or choose. We don't have to say they're all good and they're all bad. We can say there's some really great things and there's some really hard things that happen. And we can hold space for both of those things to allow you to be able to heal, so that you can be able to move forward in your life in the way that you want to. And I keep kind of bringing clients back to that idea of being able to hold both. We're not choosing which one their parent is, good or bad. It's not either. It's neither. It's actually in that gray. And a lot of times we know that when we're working with trauma clients, that gray is a really difficult place for them to be, because it's very easy to get into the black and white thinking, because that's safer for them. But I'm really challenging them to kind of come into that gray of parents can be good and bad at the same time. There can be really great things and there can be really hard things about our parents. And that doesn't mean that we have to pick or choose one or the other. We can acknowledge all of it. And so that's one of the ways that I deal with that barrier when working with clients. So I just wanted to share a little bit about inner child work. I just wanted to talk a little bit about how I use it in my work, and how I use it doing trauma treatment. I hope this has been helpful for you. Maybe you can take away some of the things that I'm doing and try to apply them into your own work and kind of make them your own. If you do go in and try to apply some of these things and make them your own, I would love to hear how they're working. I would love to hear how you adapted it and how you kind of got creative with it. If you do, I just love to hear those kinds of things, because I think the more we can be creative, the more we can meet our clients' needs, the greater the possibility for them to actually get healing. And that's what we're in the business to do, is to help people heal from trauma. So you guys have a great rest of your day. Thank you for watching. If you've enjoyed this video, make sure to subscribe. Also make sure to give me a thumbs up so that we can get more and more people into the community and they can see these videos and we can connect and continue to build a strong trauma treatment community. Thank you and have a great rest of your day. Bye-bye.